So I'm gonna kick it off with asking. I wanna ask you what is it's two questions I want to ask, but I wanna start it off with asking what does fatherhood mean to you? I'll let you answer that. I'll be the last one to answer, but I'll let you go first.
I, Fatherhood has changed for me, right? It's changed for me because you know, me growing up, I come from an era where your father, your dad, was heavy handed.
Right.
You know what I mean? My kids, as they came up, I had to learn, and I made a lot of mistakes because I had to learn that you know their era, I couldn't be heavy handed.
Right.
I had to learn how, if I think about it, almost you had to be father and mother, right? Because there are times you had to, you got to smack them up, but then there are times that sometimes kids nowadays are they're sensitive. They know a lot more. They're exposed to a lot more, so they kind of hold you. I don't want to say hold you to a certain responsibility, but you have to be able to understand them.
Right.
You know what I mean? One time in life, it used to be because daddy said so.
Right.
Nobody said why.
Right.
Because if you said why, you probably get smacked up.
Right.
You know what I mean? Now, you know, I don't want to say that kids are empowered to that, but, it's just so much going on now. You don't want to put your kids in a situation where they don't understand the outside world.
Right.
You know what I mean? So now for me, fatherhood means that I've got to be understanding. And I tell people all the time, my father, who I think in the top three of fathers in the world,
Right.
never ever said to me he loved me.
Right.
Never took me to the park, swung me, none of that.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I, I I had everything. I had everything I needed growing up.
Love was a privilege.
Hey,
That was
hey,
telling us that was a privilege.
I can remember him one time telling my niece, my one of my nieces, asking him to. Well, she was talking to me and her father, my oldest brother, and we was telling her that your granddaddy never told us he loved us, and she was like, "Well, if I ask him, he'll tell me he loved me." And so she lived with us for a minute, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so she did it. She approached him, and he said, "Well, I got to tell you I love you. You lived in my house, ate my food."
Right.
But
Right.
you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But that was that brand of fatherhood.
Mm-hmm.
Our brand of fatherhood, we've got to be more in touch with the kids.
Right. Brother Russ, what's your take on fatherhood?
Wow, that's a, that's a heavy topic because, in large respect, I honestly, and I say what I'm about to say not from a perspective of having it all together, because a large part of me feel like I'm still learning. Even at
Mm-hmm.
55, still sort of learning how to make moves. But I was just thinking about of responsibility of fatherhood. And I think there's three things that come to my mind. One is to teach, to model, and to mentor.
Mm-hmm.
As
Mm-hmm.
fathers, I think a primary responsibility of a father is to teach. What message are you leaving with your children? What message are you sharing with them? What are you teaching them in terms of life, in terms of faith? Teaching, the the father has to be the biggest teacher.
Mm.
Not limited to the sons, but especially, I'll say especially to the sons,
Right.
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
teach, but then also to model. Not We're no longer living in a time where you can say, do what I say, not what I do.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to model it, because we actually teach more by what we do than what we say.
Right.
So that makes us hypocritical if we're teaching one thing and doing another.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And our children are not going to listen to us or respect us if we're hypocriting. So I've got to teach what I believe, but I also have to model that.
Right.
My behavior, must model that. I can't teach my son that it's how to treat a woman, the right way to treat a woman, and I mistreat his mom.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
he's going to learn more by what he sees me do versus what I tell him.
Oh, yes, learn behavior.
So to teach, to model, but then also to mentor. And to me, that becomes, at this season of my life, absolutely critical, because my role in my children's life have changed now.
Yeah. Right.
I don't know how much, I really don't know how much I can teach them now. That teaching season may be, and I'm not saying it's all done, but it's a different dynamic. My goal right now is to be available for them, to be there, so as they are navigating life, their own life, when they have questions or if they are not sure on what kind of moves they need to make, for me to be available to them if they say, hey, Dad, what do you think about this? Or, hey, Dad, I got a question about this. To be there to mentor them, to say, hey, here's some options for you to think about. Here's some things for you to consider. Here's some consequences if you go this route or that route. Here's how I think about it.
Yeah.
But ultimately, they make the decision. So when the children are young, you tell them, look, you do this now. You have more control. As they get older, you have less and less control. Your goal, I think, as an older father, is to have influence, because you lose control, but you must always strive to have influence, and that's what the mentoring piece is. So that mentoring piece becomes important for me. That's just sort of sort of one dimension of what I think it means to be a father, and it evolves over time.
Yeah.
It evolves over time. I can't take a principle or a practice, I would say my son Derek, for example. I mean, I can't take a practice from 20 years ago and use that same practice now,
Right.
That he's in his mid to late 20s.
Right.
It's not the same.
No.
He's different. I'm different. His world is different now. So understanding where your children are, what they need, and then being comfortable to be honest with them. Even sometimes fatherhood, I've learned, is allowing them to see your scars and your wounds.
Yeah.
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 Let them know if something hurts or if it stings. And I think that will also help shape that relationship. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. They say you can get all the knowledge you want out of books, but you get wisdom out of life. So
Yeah.
that was dope. Jason, what's your take from it, Jason? I mean, being a younger father,
Yeah.
having all this wisdom behind you, you know what I'm saying, around you. What is your take on it right now?
I'll be honest, fatherhood, for me, I came up with that older, like you said, heavy hand type father. So I had that, but I also came up with a generation that was, like y'all said, they're a little more sensitive, a little more emotional and all that stuff. So I had sort of both sides of it. So when I became a father, I had to sort of decide which things were good, which things weren't good.
Right.
So I look at that older fatherhood and it was like some of that stuff that I didn't see my dad go through, or I saw that something was happening, but I didn't know what was going on. I look at that and I'm like, dang, I wish I had known that he was hurting in those moments. Right. That would have changed things. So for me, I think fatherhood is really just the first demonstration of a man. Whether that's,
I don't mean to cut you off. You said you didn't know that he was hurting.
Yeah.
What you mean?
Hurting as in, like, I look at just one simple example with some of my football games and stuff like that.
Right.
So, I'm going to the games, he come to the games and stuff. He's sitting there, he's chilling and stuff like that. I'm seeing him up there in the crowd. I see other people get hyped and stuff. I might score a touchdown. I look back and he just kind of he just nodded his head and stuff. Like, all right, cool. He's excited about that. I'm thinking he good.
Right.
Later on, I found out it was like, well, I'm more so sitting like this. I'm chilling and stuff because I got to think about the bills that I decided not to pay so that I can make it to a game.
Make it to this game.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
I had to figure out like, oh dang, I had to take this to the pawn shop to make a little extra money so we could get in this game. And I was like,
get these cleats.
I was like, yeah, to get these cleats. And I'm like,
right.
Yo, why you ain't told me that? Like,
right.
I would have felt a little more appreciative of you being at the game. I wouldn't have been, the guy on the sideline that you say my name. I look back there, I'm like, man, I ain't trying to hear that. Like, I would have been like, yo, no, I need to pay attention to him for real. Like, like he did a lot to be here right now.
Yeah.
So it just, like, stuff like that, it was like, dang, if I would have known that stuff, I would have been better. I could have been a better kid, But back to what I was saying, like, it's just being that demonstration of a man. For a son, they need to see what it's like to be a man. Like, for me, like I said, if I would have known those things, I would have been like, all right, you know what? I know how to govern myself. I know that pain does happen to a man. It's not just they go through life and everything is good. For a woman, I mean, for a little girl, they got to look up and be like, hey, this what I'm looking for when I look for a husband or when I look for somebody to be with.
There you go.
If you're not that, this is the standard. If you don't reach this,
there you go.
I'm sorry, but you ain't hitting on nothing.
There you go.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I saw it and stuff, and just kind of showing them that, because that was like one of the pieces of advice that I told somebody I would give my son, that you don't have no quit in you. And now that I've gotten older, a little bit smarter over the past couple years, I realized how much more that meant. It's like, hey, having no quit in you don't mean you don't stop doing stuff. Because you may stop doing some things. It's not so much that you quit. It's just that I know that I lost. And it's okay to stop something when you say, hey, listen, I lost. Yeah. It's cool. And it's okay it's like, listen, I lost, I learned the lesson, I'm gonna move on from it. But that's, to some people, they look at that and they go like, man, nah, you quitting. It's like, nah, that's just how people used to say, pick your battles. Like, you move on. It is what it is. So doing that stuff, and to how you said, like, being a mentor, I know that's another big thing. I even do it in the workplace, where you got a mentor, a coach, and an advocate. You got somebody who's mentoring you. They're going to talk to you. They're going to, stroke your emotions, do all this stuff and make you feel better and stuff, give you the feel good stuff. But your coach, they're going to hit you with something different. Your coach will hit you between the eyes.
Oh, yeah.
And that's somebody, like, you got to know when to be that for the kid. So fatherhood, to me, I'm looking at my son and I'm like, hey, in this moment, I need to teach you. I need to do this stuff for you. But then there's other times where I got to be like, listen, no, that's not how we do things. I got to be a coach. And I understand that when I get older, I'm going to get to that point like I've seen with you. And I laugh about it when you do that with Derek. It's like, who I need to call? Who I need to talk to? And it's like, I hear you say that, but I also know on the backside of that, you kind of serious. It's like, listen, if I need to speak on your behalf, I can do that.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
And that's something, I look at that and I'm like, you got to be able to be all of those.
Yeah.
You got to be able to adapt. You got to be able to, hey, I can talk to you. You going through a rough patch. I can be your mentor. I know right then I can't be your coach, because if I hit you between the eyes right now, you gonna fold.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just that I think it's a growing type thing with fatherhood now. It's definitely a ever changing thing, and I'm seeing how now it's more than just, hey, I'm your dad. Do what I say.
Yeah.
That's it.
I think, can I chime in on another? Can I make another point?
Absolutely.
I think fatherhood. The other thing is, it's no real textbook definition.
No.
Even as all the guys are here today, everybody's got a different perspective.
Yes,
Sometimes looking
that's
at
what
the
I was gonna
same
say.
life, but
That's
a different
exactly what I was gonna
perspective.
say.
And so, when I look at fatherhood, I mean, I could take the rest of the day talking about my fatherhood, because my biological father was not there, and I was raised by a foster father. And so I've had other father figures in my life, but then I also look at myself as a dad in the failures that I've had as a man and as a father. I've failed big time. So I think one of the things of fatherhood is not quitting. It's not a thing that you can be perfect in, because we're trying to figure this thing out. But how am I going to respond when I drop the ball? When I fumble, am I going to quit? Am I going to let the defense get in my head and just mess up the whole rest of the game? Or am I going to say, look, I dropped the ball on this. Now let me learn from this. Let me pick up the pieces salvage what's left, and let's change what's next. I messed up now, and I can't change that, but I can change what I do going forward. And a large part of my life, even some of the examples that I use now, that I do with my kids now, some of that has been because I've dropped the ball with those same kids
Yeah.
in the past.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
picked it up, and I was like, okay. So I've had situations, from financial situations to employment situations, all kind of stuff. You know, as a man, life will knock the wind out of you. And when you talk about, my goal is to try to live life with no regrets, man, when you talk about being a man or a father, and I see my flaws even more than my kids do. When you talk about having something repossessed, you know, having a house foreclosed on, and you sitting there looking at the look in your wife and your kid's face as you're going through that,
Right.
Yeah.
you know, that's real. But then now, also not quitting, choosing not to give up, but now you can take the lessons from that and now be able to share with your children and saying, hey, here's how some moves you can make to avoid some of those things.
Yeah.
Learning from those things,
Yeah.
and
That's
constantly
it.
trying to improve.
That's
It's
it.
always a lesson
Yeah.
in the loss.
It's always
Always a
trying to
lesson in the
learn,
loss.
not quitting. You mentioned that before, not quitting
don't quit.
when you fail.
Yeah.
If you lost, sometimes you take the L, you go back in the locker room and you assess, you learn. You said, man, I should have did this. Man, I knew if I had done
learn,
this,
man.
and learn from it. So now when I roll up my sleeves and I go back in life, I go back on the field, I'm going to take those lessons that I learned, because if that thing hit hard enough, if that pain hit you hard enough, you're going to want to avoid that pain.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You ain't trying to go back there.
And so I got to go back out here and I got to make sure that I do what I got to do. And a lot of times that drives men's decisions and responsibility. That drives some of our responsibilities. We're like, no, I can't. I got to be able to provide for my family. I can't lose my house. I can't lose. Oh, no. We're going to do this, this, and this because I am determined, or I'm afraid, whatever it may be, that I don't want to end up like this person ended up, or like I don't want to happen to me what happened before. So I'm going to make sure I'm responsible. I'm going to make sure I'm doing this because I don't want to experience the pain that I felt before.
Yeah, my you know, everybody wasn't fortunate to have a father in your life. So for me, I was one of those kids that was fortunate to be able to have a father. And that and when you're young, you sit back and you're like, man, like, why is he so hard?
Yeah.
Or why it is, because, you know, my dad's old school. You know what I'm saying? But now, when I look at it now, and God blessed me to have children now, I've been through a lot. When it came to, I was married and I had kids with my wife, and it was tough because I was put into that role of not just being a father, but also being a nurturer as well.
Yeah.
So I had to not only go out here and coach and, hey, you better be a man, but now let's go to the doctor because we got a doctor's appointment. Well, let me get these diapers because you know what I'm saying, I got to do all of that because my kids were with me when they were young, my boys. So I had to take on that role, that responsibility of showing them what that man was. So the older I got, the more it was easier for me to be able to demand what I wanted because I was demonstrating.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Exactly.
So, and I had to be held accountable. And that's the hardest thing, especially when you're in the public. I got a barbershop, I'm cutting hair. So everybody's going to my son, and they, you know, especially Bryce. Bryce probably went through it the worst because I wanted to be coach, dad, barber, all of that. And I had to also understand that the frustrations that I was taking out on him was because of what I was going through with his mama. So I had to learn that wasn't fair to him. So in life, you learn. So and it's unfortunate, we hate to say it, but the oldest ones are the ones that get it.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that you learn from. So you learn what not to do with Juju. So now Jabbar and Jakai are living off of the benefits of what I went through with Ariane and Bryce.
Yeah.
But that also helps me out now to be more receptive and listen rather than control.
Right.
Because one thing control creates, it creates resistance.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, they got the new and improved you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say this: my fatherhood also is a testament of the woman that I have in my life, my wife. Because one thing as a man, and Eric touched on it, us as men, when we leave out, we deal with stuff that women don't understand.
Yes, Lord.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So one thing, my wife speaks life into me.
Yeah.
I don't got to worry about stuff when I go home. It's like everything's taken care of.
Yeah.
So now I can come up in here and I can give everybody 1,000% of me. I can give my kids 1,000% of me.
Right.
I can do this like what Eric was talking about. And that's the one thing I'm so thankful for is my praying family, but also the fact that when I book appointments in here, I can control my environment.
Yeah.
So those conversations that I have with Eric or that I have with Brother Tyrone, I know the conversation is going to help me out.
Yeah.
So I'm talking to brothers that's been through it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm thankful for that, but also, and another thing, I give a shout out to my pop, and he's in here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's one thing as a man that you want to do.
Yeah.
Is make your dad proud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sir.
And
No doubt.
so when y'all up in here right now, and y'all up in my shop,
Yeah.
and my dad is here,
Yeah.
it does something to me.
Yeah.
So I'm thankful for him for showing me, because I know a lot of men that that didn't have that,
Yes, sir.
and we pass judgment on them, and you don't know what they've been through in their life.
Right.
And I was fortunate to see that man wake up every day,
Yeah.
go to work, leave Philly.
Mm-hmm.
We traveling all around the world. So for me, I was able to adapt to every surrounding I was in. I could be around white folk and know how to adapt. I could be around Chinese folk and know how to adapt, because I've been fortunate enough to be all around the world, and that's because of Roosevelt Carmack.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I was like you, my dad wasn't telling me that he loved me, but I saw it in his action.
Right.
Yeah.
So now our conversations now are, every time he gets off the phone, it's like, hey, I love you.
I love you.
And I'm like, man, so now that's helping me out with
Yeah.
mine.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, it's dope. So,
Yeah.
excuse me
good.
for getting a little choked up, but
You good?
you know what I'm saying?
That's
Like
good.
like
Yeah.
that's just how it is when you fortunate enough to have your father around you.
Yeah.
I feel that.
And that's what I wanted to do for mine, even though I went through a divorce. But one thing my kids can never say about me, that I never was present.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I was there. I don't care. I had opportunities to go to other states and cut hair. I think I'm pretty good, with doing this. You know what I'm saying? But I told myself I was not going to not have my children know that, hey, like Dad, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Like Pop was here, So on that note, we're gonna go into fatherhood.
Yeah.
I mean,
Let me
what
say
is it,
something real
manhood?
quick. I just say real quick on that. I got to say this because Jabbar, I don't know if your dad knows this, but I'm in this chair right here 3 days a week, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Sundays. I'm in here, and me and Jabbar talks about a lot. We talk about a lot. Jabbar adores his dad.
Oh yeah.
I will tell you that, brother. I'll tell you this.
Oh, yeah.
Jabbar talks about his
Brother
dad
Carmack.
a lot. And he'll say stuff like, oh, you must not know my dad's name. My dad is brother. My dad is brother. He said that all the time. Am I lying, Jabbar?
No.
Jabbar said, my dad is brother. My dad is brother. In other words, what that says to me is the impact that your dad, Jabbar, has had on your life.
Absolutely.
Whatever you may have thought growing up, you realize as a man, when you became a man, you see things differently.
Right.
And
right.
He is the man that has influenced your life more than any other man. And you say that out of your mouth. You would not talk about your dad as much if he didn't have that influence. Your work ethic, your dad don't play about his work ethic.
No, Lord.
How you handle stuff, how you move in business,
Right.
how you handle your business affairs, you get that from your daddy.
Right.
So I see that influence. And to me, as we're talking about fatherhood, that's really a model of how it should be. Kids are not going to always understand things at the time.
No.
The Bible says when I was a child, I spake as a child, I thought as a child, I understood as a child.
Right.
But when I became a man, I put away childish things. In other words, I thought differently.
Right.
So sometimes we see things, and as men, that's another thing. We can't always give in to the cries and the whimpers of our children.
No.
Right.
Because we know what's best for the life that's out there for them, for these streets and this world.
Yes.
That's gonna eat them alive
Yes.
if we don't put the right stuff in them as young men. So I'm sorry I interrupted
Yeah,
you, Jabbar.
and
You
I
about to
and I
transition.
and I'll say this, that was one plus that my wife loved about me, because I know how to clean. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't like things dirty and messy. Like,
Right.
when I come up in here, I don't come up in here seeing how my father would get up in the morning. Like, I'm never here right on time.
Right.
I'm here 30, 45 minutes before they come
Right.
in here.
Right.
Because when they come in here, I want them to feel welcomed. I want them to know. But if I didn't have that leader leading that house, because it's hard.
Right.
It's hard.
Right, it is.
You know what I'm saying? As a man, and we don't talk about that enough. And these are the conversations that I love when people come in the barbershop. I talk to men about, hey man, you been to the doctor to get your checkup?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And they be like, nah. And Eric told me, he was like, you got to understand your level of influence.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You got to understand that, because when you think people's not watching you, they watching you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I learned from my father.
Yeah.
My father was never out. He was never all in everybody's space. He was out of sight, out of mind. But the moves that he made, I was able to pick up off of those moves, and I was able to maneuver the way I wanted to maneuver, because a lot of stuff I didn't like. So I was like, okay, yeah, let me try it this way. But one thing fear turns into, when you get older, fear turns into respect.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing that I have, is respect.
Yeah.
I don't play around with that. And I don't let nobody who's around me, especially if you young, not give me the respect.
Got to.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's one thing I had to learn. And when you get older and so that's one thing I learned, especially being a parent. Because one thing we want to do is we want to raise our kids to be responsible so we can be less responsible. You know what I'm saying? I don't want you to be coming home and living with me and we up in here in this house. No, that's one thing I learned from my pop.
From brother.
No, from brother. You know what I'm saying? I love my daddy. But I'm thankful more that God made him my father.
Yeah.
Because I could have been anybody's son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for him to give me that man, to show me,
Yeah.
my kids and that graduation, I ain't gonna lie. Everybody else was crying and they was doing all of that. Me, I was like, I want to thank God, but I want to thank me. I want to thank me for waking his butt up. I want to thank me for doing all this hard work. He better be going to school for free.
Yeah.
I was demonstrating all of that stuff.
Yeah. Full ride.
I was demonstrating that.
Yeah.
So he didn't have a choice. So why? And I take it to another. Why wouldn't nobody want to be around me?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So that's just my take on it.
So Jason, how would you transition that fatherhood into manhood? What would be like right now? Everybody's so visual. Everything is visual, right? Everybody iPhone, iPad, whatever, right? So what would, if you was describing to a blind man what manhood was?
It would have to be knowing your identity in every situation. So it's knowing that in this spot in my life, this is who I need to be, and I'm gonna meet that bar and exceed it.
Right.
Yeah.
As each time something comes up, like whether it's like you said, like, hey, house foreclosed, what am I gonna do now? I gotta go live here. How am I gonna handle this situation? It's not, well, this is who I am. I don't really know how to, I can't function. I can't get nothing done. It's like, nah, listen, I gotta be able to adapt and adjust. I gotta be able to move. I gotta be able to shift and do what I need to do.
Pivot.
To get it done. And that, to me, it just goes back to that. It's something that one of my coworkers said one time, they said GSD, get stuff done. I say it like that.
Yeah.
But that's basically, that's kind of how it was. Like
Yeah.
I look at my dad. That's how he did it. It was like, man, this car just broke down. I haven't worked a whole lot with transmissions yet, but I ain't got the money. So guess what?
I'm
We
gonna work
about
on
to
this
learn.
transmission.
Figure
We
it
about
out.
to learn how to work on transmissions.
Yeah. Figure it
And
out.
I love that, because now I look on that and I'm like, yo, all the times that you was figuring it out, now
Right.
you taught me.
Right.
Like I tell everybody all the time, like, listen, as much money as I've saved myself,
Yeah.
just learning about cars from that dude. Listen,
Yeah.
my dad has taught me tons on that, and it's just, for me, I watched him pretty much. It's like, hey, I need to be able to pivot. I need to be able to adjust. I need to be able to do what I need to do to get it done. And that's like that. That's just manhood all around. I mean, it's in everything that we do. I mean, you can just be playing a game of basketball, and it's like, listen, like you were saying earlier, hey, if they come down and they just shooting at the gym, and we've been in zone the whole game, and they just shooting the lights out, like,
Right.
hey, we need to go pick them up.
Right.
Full court. Like, I'm not about to stay back here. Like, I'm not gonna just let you shoot. That's how I look at life. I'm like, listen, I'm not gonna just, like how people be saying life is lifing.
Yeah.
Like, to
Yeah.
me, I look at it like this. Okay, cool, but I'm gonna do me though.
Right.
Like, life can life all it want to, but hey, it's gonna know about me. It's gonna know at the end of the day, like, yeah, I tried to life Jason, but it ain't. He somehow moved and made it work. Like, I don't know how he made it work, but he made it work. That's how I look at manhood. You got to be able to just make it work.
And it's so and as a man as well, it's okay how the media and how the world perceives it. It's okay to have emotions and feelings. You know what I'm saying? Like it's all right to be able to tell your son that, hey man, hey, it's okay
Yeah.
for you to have emotions and feelings.
Yes,
And it's
sir.
also okay for you to stick your chest out and be like, yo, nah. And
Yeah.
I heard that from Pastor Belton. He said, man, one thing as a man you have to do, you
Yeah.
gotta stand.
Yeah.
And that's a hard decision to do when you're dealing with emotions, especially with
Yes,
our
sir.
wives. But women are only going to respect what they see respect themselves.
Yes, sir.
You know what I'm saying? And that's one thing I learned also from my pop. You know, one thing, my mom, she would be a certain type of way, and pop be like, yeah, all right, this is what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
This is what we're gonna do. So they want you to lead.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
okay for you to have emotions. And that's one
Yes,
thing
sir.
I did learn from going through what I went through with Bryce, to the point to where, like with Jude, because Jude came up to me and he was like, yeah, Dad, how you feel about me joining the show choir? And I was like, man, show choir? Man, I'm an athlete. You know what I mean? Like, no, we ain't gonna join show choir. But I'll tell you what show choir did for Juju. It got him going to college for free.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And the fact that I was able to go through what I went through with my older two, it was easier for him to come and talk to me.
Yeah.
You know, I never want my kids to be that fearful to be able to not to want to come and talk to
yeah.
me, because they're gonna go out there, they're gonna talk to somebody out there.
Yeah.
In the street.
Somebody gonna talk to him.
You know what I'm saying? So I never want them to ever, you know, especially now, Jakai, you know, he'll do some things just to impress me. And I told him at his game one time, I was like, man, you know what? I said, you know, I'm gonna love you regardless if you
Yeah.
score 20 or if you lose. I said, I'm
Yeah.
still gonna be your daddy, and I still
Don't
love
nothing
you.
change.
So go out there and just play.
Yeah.
It don't matter. You go out there, you play, and you have fun, and let's do it. You know, so that's one thing I'll really say is it's okay to teach them that it's all right to have
Yeah.
emotions. Brother Carolina over here about to go to sleep now.
Hey.
Yeah.
That's that experience I was
That's that
talking
experience.
about.
I see
That's
that.
that
I see
experience
that.
I was talking about.
That's
When
that
I put that warm towel on him, he said, He said, I'm gonna have them. I'm gonna have a bunch of them traveling down here from where they're gonna get their hair cut at now, because they're going to Stevie Wonder now.
Hey, listen.
So now they're gonna get tired of going to Stevie, and they're gonna come up in here and I'm gonna get them. No, that's just a joke. Joke.
Yeah.
What about you, Pastor? What is manhood?
Manhood. Wow. Let me see if I can simplify it, so I don't bore y'all. But
I never get bored of this.
manhood is. I'll make it simple. I'll put it I'm going to use a proverb, and I can't remember whether it was a Chinese proverb or whatever, but I'll give you what I've learned and have shared, even with my sons, as what I feel it means being a man. The proverb says that a man is not a man until he has built a house, and this is not necessarily in the right order, but it built a house, sired a son, and planted a tree.
Yeah.
Built the house, sired a son, and planted a tree. And obviously, built the house has to do with what we have accomplished,
Yeah.
the works of our hands. A man's responsibility is to work. The Bible, God put man in the garden to work it,
Yeah.
to work it. We are hands-on. We have to produce something. We have work, and we have to do honest work. That's why men are not lazy, or men should not be lazy.
Heck no.
Because building a house means I'm investing, that I'm working, using the strength and the skills that God give me.
Right.
Sire the son, that you can look at that a couple ways. That doesn't necessarily mean that you've had a biological son, because there's some men that may have all daughters.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some men that don't have biological children at all.
Yep.
So it's not necessarily limited to biology, but there are other people in your life that you can impact.
Yeah.
There are other children. There may be nieces. There may be nephews. There may be neighbors. There may be other children that you can have an impact on. So when we're talking about siring a son, what are you putting in the next generation?
Exactly.
Whose life are you impacting? Who are you able to have an impact on and to pour into? And then he talks about planting a tree, and I look at that as the impact that we're having in our world. Our goal must be to leave the world a better place than what we found it. How are we committed to God's creation?
Yeah.
To longevity, doing things that will outlive us? Are we contributing back to the society that God has placed us in the season that we're in? Are we maximizing it? And so it's all, to me, attached to responsibility. I think a man, what it means to be a man is to be responsible
Yeah.
over whatever dimension God has placed you in.
Yeah.
You're responsible, and that's a whole dynamic in and of itself. But if I would sum it up, I think to be a man means to be responsible.
Wow. And that's
Take breaks.
And take breaks.
Yeah, we ain't gotta.
Yeah.
You know, I worked so much, cutting hair, doing this and doing that. My daughter came back to me and she told me, she said, "Dad, you know, I'm upset with you because you missed this and you missed that, because
Yeah.
I wanted to work." So now I had to understand through life,
Yeah.
you're gonna make plenty of money. But one thing you can never get back
You can't get
is
time.
that time.
Can't get
Yeah.
time back. Cannot.
You can't
Can't
get
get it
that
back.
time back. So
Can't
I'll
get it
tell
back.
if there's something that I'll say about manhood, go, because they're not going to remember what you bought them. That's going, but I'm gonna tell you,
Yeah.
they're gonna remember you being there,
Yeah.
Yeah. You're
and they're gonna
present.
tell you, man, I remember my dad. I went to my
Yeah.
son,
Yeah.
man, I went to my
Yeah.
son's graduation. I went to Jakai's graduation, and I had two that day, and I wanted to be relevant. So that day, my mom and I, we woke up. We got to Lugolf at 8:30. It was so, bam! It was from 8:30 to about 9.
Yeah.
So we got there and we was sitting down, and the girl was like, she was turned around, she was talking to somebody. She was like, "Yeah, my dad is always late, but he's coming, but he's always late. He ain't show up.
Wow.
Mm.
He ain't show up." So I made it my business. When I heard that, I was like, yeah, I looked at the time. I was like, I got time to go to my son's graduation, and I got time to go to my son's class day.
Yeah.
That week was one of the best weeks of my life.
Yeah.
Not the money I spent on, because I spent a lot of money at his graduation party and through all that. I made all that money back.
That's easy.
Yeah.
But that time,
Don't
man,
make money.
Yeah.
That ain't no
take breaks, brothers.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
telling you, because you see who's struggling now. You know, you're gonna get older. You know what I'm saying? I'm learning this. I take breaks, man, because you see us, man. We don't want to, toe up. Them women, they going. Women, you see them, they running circles around us now when we get older now. So take breaks.
Take breaks. That's good.
I like that. What you said about, especially with that last piece of planting a tree.
Yeah.
I like that because it didn't say plant a seed.
Right.
Because you can plant a seed and just let it do what it do.
Right.
But if you got a tree, you took some time with that. You stayed there to nurture it. You were there to let it grow from just a little weed to getting into being an actual tree. When you say plant a tree, that's investment.
Right.
That ain't just I dug a little hole and threw it in the ground.
Right.
I was here.
That's
like you said, Javar, like I was there for it.
Oh,
I was here for this. You can't plant a tree without, you gotta be there.
You gotta be there.
So
That's good.
And then how you look saying something to them and you ain't there?
hey,
Yeah.
Now these kids now voice their opinion until they know now.
Yeah, and that's and that's what I was saying earlier from the fatherhood side. Even as we go for a man, right? If you want to say you're a man, it is kind of flipped that we have to be vulnerable, right? Most women, right? If you take it from the women aspect, women want to know how you feeling,
yeah,
right? And as men, a lot of times we try to hold things in,
Yes, Lord.
right? Not give it up. I just believe this, and I kind of look at, I guess where I would say I kind of realized that I was actually a man really was when I was able to just assess me, right? Not nobody else.
Yeah.
When I actually looked at me and said, hey, dude, this what you got going on. This where you wrong. This where you messed up. Nobody else, you can't blame nobody else.
no,
Right? Now there might have been some outside factors, right, that messed up your decision making, but you made that decision, right?
yeah,
Accept it, move on, right?
Yeah.
So you chose to buy a car you couldn't afford,
Yeah.
and now the man coming to get it. You live with that. You figure out you got to drive this hoopty now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You at where you at now.
you gotta drive this hoopty for the next year until somebody willing to give you some credit when you get a new car.
Yeah.
Accept that. Stop trying to hustle up something.
yeah.
The
Accountability piece for real. That's something that I picked that up when I was at Coastal. When I played football there, the motto was BAM, be a man, or BAM, be a man, and it was accept responsibility for your actions, or stand on your own 2 feet and accept responsibility for your own actions. And that was something big, because I saw how those coaches at that time, they made sure we knew that before. They were like, listen, if you're gonna be a part of this team, you're gonna know this. Because listen, even on the field, off the field, whatever you do, whatever you did, you're gonna accept that.
Yeah.
If you can't be a man, you can't be on this team.
And I'm also looking forward to hearing from some of the other guys too, to see how these conversations have impacted them as well. So I appreciate what has gone into this, and we're looking forward to more.
Especially known, this is dope, and I love it. I'm just looking forward to myself, looking forward to, we want y'all to look forward to more episodes of The Chair.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.